So here's a whole whack of different containers I've been trying out for carrying my fuel in. Um, I really like working with alcohol. Alcohol stoves are awesome. They're cheap. I love the whole DIY concept. And this is just some of the different containers that I thought I'd show you guys. First one here is camp suds. Whoops, filming one-handed here. You probably all work with this stuff. It takes only 1 or 2 drops to do a load of dishes, and you really don't go through this too fast. You'll notice I've only used a little bit here, and most of that's poured off into a smaller container because bringing all 60 milliliters here on a camping trip is just a waste of space. You really need about 1 or 2 milliliters. This is just way too much. So once I find my way to the bottom of this will make a great fuel container. It's 60 milliliters, as I said, so 2 ounces, about 2 burns on your standard alcohol stove. It also has a nice little lid here that flips up. It makes it very easy to pour smaller amounts, and it also seals up well when it's in your bag, so you don't have to worry about spilling. Next one I want to show you here, this is just your normal Cascade or jet dry bottle. It's 125 milliliters, so about 4 ounces. This is probably better for a 2 or 3 day trip. A little bit bigger, great container here. It seals up well. Same thing, it's got a little nozzle so you don't squirt out too much. It's clear so you can see what's in there. You can take off these labels. I've still got quite a bit of it to use up, but once this is empty I'll be saving it for a fuel bottle. This costs maybe $4 at your grocery store. Another thing here, this is just a little thing of AquaSafe. This is water purification, or not purification, just conditioning for a fish tank. I have a few tanks. I've got a 5-gallon and a 10-gallon. It took me about a year to go through this. I'm working on another bottle of it now because it's such a great container. What I love about it is the side here. You'll notice there's actually a window with measurements. So when you're squirting it out, you can actually see how much you're using. Each measurement is actually 1 ounce. I had to play around a bit to find that out because they're not labeled. The measurements don't make sense for fish tanks because you're only putting about 3 drops in at a time, but perfect for containing your fuel. This probably costs about $5 or $6 at Walmart, and it'll take you about a year to go through before you can actually free up the container. The next one that I knocked over here, this is just a small 100 milliliter container here. It's Alpenbitter. I put a few drops of this in my various alcoholic beverages that I make. Great little containers. I have a few of these. I bring a couple camping. Maybe we should put something like cream or condensed milk in one. Depends on what else I need. You can even put a little bit of Everclear in here if you just need a little pick-me-up for your canoe trip. This is 100 milliliters, so about 3 ounces and a little bit to spare. Great little container. I think it's about $2.95 one filled up, and I actually go through these faster than the others. I'll drink it straight sometimes because it's so tasty. Now these 2 containers here, these are your standard juice containers. You've probably brought these to school when you're a kid. This one here is 250 milliliters, so about, I think that's a half pint. I'm not really good with Imperial, but I'm a metric boy, what can I say. This one here is a little bit bigger. It's about 400 milliliters. Both of these are not really that expensive. This here is a Rubbermaid brand. I think I paid about $2 or $3 for this. I've seen them at the dollar store for much less. This here is a dollar store variant. Really not much difference in quality. They both have the same top nozzle there, both see-through. You'll notice on this one I actually added my own measurements. Maybe you can't see it on the camera, but what I did was I turned upside down and I'd fill up 1 ounce shot glass and mark off the level, squirt in another ounce, mark off the level. So I've got notches for every ounce there, and I actually initially did it with a Sharpie, and then I came back later with an X-Acto knife and scored it, just because it's alcohol in here. You're going to spill some inevitably, and it's going to wipe off the ink, so you don't want to do that twice. It's just too much effort. This one didn't have that groove on there, so I didn't bother. One's green, one's red. It really doesn't represent anything other than the fact that it's poisonous substances in here. It also helps you see your level. It's a lot easier to see when you've got food coloring in there. It does cause it to burn a little less clean. You can sometimes end up with a bit of red or green residue in your SuperCAD or whatever you're using, but it's not really a big deal. It's all cosmetic. But these, about $1 or $2 each, great containers. All I do is I modify the lid a little, and I'll show you that in 1 second. So here's your standard lid. It does have a straw that fits on this little nozzle here, and the straw basically reaches to the bottom of the juice container. Now you probably remember this from when you were a kid. I know I do. Once you get down to the last little bit, it's really hard to get it out. The straw doesn't quite reach the bottom. If you tip your head back and try and gulp it down, you still can't get it because now the straw's at the top and the juice is at the other end. So half the time you'd end up pulling the straw off and putting the lid back on. You still couldn't get that last bit because this, when it's upside down, the water level could be about here and this nozzle is sticking out of it. So what I did was I actually took a Dremel and I cut this off. You don't need it, you're not using the straw, and it allows you to get that last little bit out without having to unscrew the lid and pour it. It's just a lot easier to control the pour with this piece. So I'll show you the other one here that I've modified. And there you have it. As you can see, this one's completely flush. Not the cleanest cut job ever. I don't know, just take a Dremel and hack away. It doesn't have to look pretty. But now, except for what would end up in the cap, I can get pretty much all of it out without having to unscrew the lid. Just a minor little tweak that really makes quite the noticeable difference.